Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And so glad to have you all here with us this evening. As always, I am your host, the Ambassador, and with me tonight, I've got Brian, Master of None, Superior Hero Reviews, and Speaker for the Dead. And gentlemen, glad to have you all here. And to the chat, my moderator, Shaz Storm Dragon, always here, always on time, and always awesome. And just another nerd, Black Angus Reviews. Good evening. Glad you both could tune in this evening. And tonight we are going to take a deep dive into the DCEU. And we're going to talk about three, I think, honestly, excellent entries of this universe. Oh, and here is our fifth, Classic Comics. Classic, good evening. Thank you for joining. Glad you can make it.
Good evening. Yeah, I just got here. I had to wolf down dinner right quick.
And also to the chat, Mladen Kalilik. Good evening, sir. Good for you. Good to see you, my friend. And tonight, as I was saying, we are going to jump in. We are going to be talking about Aquaman, Shazam, and Joker. So, gentlemen, we'll do some quick intros. If you got a channel you want to promote real quick, and then we'll get started with the topic of the night.
I'll get started. My channel is Brian Hill, Master of None. I'm just kind of getting started out here on YouTube. I've got a few videos on reviewing the show Picard and some other Star Trek topics and stuff like that. But I'm just trying to get more involved with the live streams to join in the conversation.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Speaker for the Dead. I've got my own channel. I cover basically everything and anything, pop culture, politics, movies, pretty much anything out there that anybody's interested in talking in or hearing my opinion on. That's what I do. And I try and be positive, try and look at the world through goggles and stuff. It's not always positive goggles, but it's not always easy. Usually it's pretty easy to get bogged down in the negative right now. So yeah, just trying to keep my head above water and, I'm very blessed in the fact that I get to come and live stream with amazing guys like the Ambassador and others. So.
All right, I guess I'll go. So my channel is Classic Comics, and I cover comics, obviously, review them and discuss them, and also cover other pop culture properties as well, film, television, and books sometimes as well.
Nice. Hey everyone, Superior Hero Reviews. I'm Cody. I have a co-host Colin who's not with us today, but we cover everything pop culture, comics, movies, video games, and more. We stream video games, pops, anything you can think of. I've actually just started a new segment called Fitness and Comics, from chunky to hunky. So yeah, just trying to live better, get in shape and stuff. I got a little girl on the way, so I got to be around for her. So glad to be here. Thank you, Ambassador, for having me. First time here.
You're welcome. First time here. We officially popped your cherry for the Ambassadorial Wing, and just so you know, you are welcome anytime, whether it's DC or whatever we're talking about. You are welcome. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, gentlemen. Well, as I was telling the fellas, everything before we got started, we're gonna kick things off, and we're going to start a discussion with Aquaman. So, gentlemen, let's talk Aquaman. Jason Momoa, William Dafoe, Patrick Wilson,
the man beater.
So, and Amber Heard, which I know she has gotten some flack and everything in the last, more than some flack, but we're not going to avoid her. We'll talk about her in context of the movie itself and everything. We'll talk about her character, Mira, and everything. Where y'all want to start on Aquaman?
Well, I'll go if it's okay, because actually, Aquaman's pretty much actually kind of my favorite character, and I really enjoyed the film tremendously. What they did with it, because they broke away from the kind of Snyder approach that they'd been taking and really took a more lighthearted, and I think just a fun approach to the movie. It's bright. There's lots of action.
Yes.
And now it's the main detriment to the film, I think, is there's just a little too much going on. They probably really didn't need to put Black Manta in that film.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they
could have
did.
without that.
I think they did because they figured, we may not get a sequel here, and so they wanted to put him in anyway.
Yeah, I think they're going to get a sequel.
Why? They've had such a good run. Why would they not get a sequel?
Well, I mean, Aquaman had never had a film before, and let's face it, he's not exactly a tremendously popular character. So I think, especially after Justice League flopped, I think they had the feeling this was probably going to be a one and done. Now it was a hit, and I'm really glad it did. The first, I think it's the first Warner Brothers movie to break $1 billion. And
very well may have been.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it was very popular. I know it did very, very well at the theaters. So
it made over $1 billion. I forget how much, but and I think it was the first Warner Brothers movie to do that. But so I'm glad it was popular and they did do a sequel. Now for the story, they largely drew from Jeff Johns's run on Aquaman in the New 52, which was back around 2011, 2012 or so. And they did a pretty good job. The fun thing about this movie is it's out of all these DCEU movies, it was the first one they did where the movie wasn't embarrassed to be a superhero movie. It really just embraced the source material. And really, except for Momoa himself being cast as Aquaman, because obviously he's kind of different from what he is in the comics. But other than that, they pretty much drew stuff right out of the comics and put it onto the screen. I mean, it looks the same. They didn't really alter it all that much.
No, because as I was watching the movie and as I was going through all the supplemental material for it, the thing that really impressed me was they did draw a lot of inspiration from the New 52 run for Aquaman. And this is an Aquaman that is very much not your granddad's Aquaman. Let's put it that way. This is not the joke Aquaman. This is not the butt of the joke and everything for the Justice League. This is a guy who can handle himself in a fight, who's got some legitimately cool abilities. One thing that I liked and everything about this film is particularly the scene where they're in the aquarium and everything. Is the when he's staying in front of the largest tank and everything, and the bullies are picking on him and all, and you see that great white ram the glass, and you're like, dang, this kid's got some ability to him. And I love all the flashback scenes that they intersperse throughout this film. And it's just it gives some nice world building. It really introduces you to the character. And I will say one other part that I loved is the fact that they picked the perfect actor to portray Arthur's father in this, Aquaman's father, Tamora Morrison, also known as Jango Fett, and the voice of every single clone in Clone Wars.
The clone.
So, yeah, but he was so good in this, and I love the fact that they both come from similar backgrounds and what have you. And he's also culturally, they come from a very similar background. They're both Polynesian. They both very much appreciate that. Okay, obviously they very much relate to that, and they tried to bring some of that culture into the film, particularly with the relationship between Aquaman and his father. So, but gentlemen, go ahead.
And that casting probably really helped the movie too, because that actor is pretty popular. With certain.
Yeah, Jason Momoa is real good.
100%. You see, that was my biggest beef with the movie. I loved the movie. I loved it. But Jason Momoa as Aquaman, which is great. He did a great job, hands down. But the surfer look that he was portraying, like, that's not Aquaman. That was the only problem I had with it. I was like, why are they giving him this slick surfer boy Hawaii look, even though that's his look naturally? But that's the only thing I had wrong with the movie. I know. I heard that from someone in the comic book community, and he brought that up, and I went back and watched it, and I was like, dang, he's right. Man, that bugs me too. I hate to step on someone's coattails and follow him, but I was like, man, it really got to me too. But yeah, sorry, that's it.
No, it definitely happens.
Oh, okay.
Well, I thought that when they cast Momoa in the role, I was really surprised because I had for a while I thought that Momoa would make a really good Lobo. I thought that was the role
I agree. Yeah.
Wow.
But when they cast him, I was just kind of like, because I knew him from Game of Thrones and from what, Stargate? Wasn't he on Stargate?
Yeah,
Yes, he was. He was actually on Stargate Atlantis.
So I was familiar with him. I liked him fine, but I wasn't really thrilled with the casting.
Mhm.
But as they were doing Justice League and Aquaman, of course, we were seeing lots of interviews and them him appearing at conventions, like at San Diego Comic-Con or whatever. And whenever I saw him, he was always just seemed really excited about the role and just really pumped to be playing Aquaman. And a lot of actors probably wouldn't be that way. They'd probably be like, oh, what, I got to be Aquaman? Why can't I be Batman or something?
Right.
But he wasn't like that. He was totally into it. And that enthusiasm he had for the role really kind of helped me sell him on being that character.
And isn't it nice to have an actor that does that embraces the role, goes to Comic-Con, loves the fans, is totally into it? I mean, that's what I thought was just his whole attitude about the whole thing. I'm not too good for this. I'm not too good for these people. I'm going to have a blast. And I mean, I love that about him. I loved him when he was in Stargate Atlantis as Ronan. He was one of my favorite characters. So yeah, but yeah, he's an amazing casting choice. And I was waiting for the blonde Aquaman, but I'm okay with, because he sold me. He sold me on it. I'm like, all right, you win.
And I am too. And I wasn't trying to say I wasn't. I was just no. That's what I was expecting. And then when I saw him and I watched the movie, I was like, oh man, it's pretty good.
I with that movie, I feel like a sense of loss, like lost potential. Because after watching like Justice League and stuff like that, I mean, my enthusiasm for the DCEU was kind of shot at that point. But it definitely it kind of, like I said, it was a sense of lost potential in a sense, because it was a really good movie. I really enjoyed that movie. Jason Momoa was really good.
He was,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian.
No. I was just gonna say, and anything with Dolph Lundgren in it kicks ass. So
yes, I would. Honestly, this was a really good cast. I mean, I know they had
Kidman?
some. Yeah, as his mom. I honestly, I was good with. I was sitting there throughout the whole movie, and anytime she was in a scene, I was like, I know this actress. Who is this? And then the credits come up, I'm like, duh.
I kept thinking Dr. Chase Meridian from Batman.
You're not the only one. And to the chat and everything, we've got a few more people popping in. Adega, a good friend. Good to see you, sir. Glad you could pop in this evening. So,
Adega.
Honestly, the casting for this movie, I felt was very top notch. The cast was very enthusiastic and everything by and large, and Momoa doubly so. I mean, watching the special features for this, you could just see his enthusiasm and his passion and his excitement and everything for the project and everything. And him being away from his kids was just, it was hard on him because he's very much a family man, which I really appreciate that fact about Jason Momoa. He is very much a family man. He loves his family, loves his kids, loves his wife. And unless I'm mistaken, isn't his wife Lisa Bonet from the Cosby Show?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was her when they had some of the and Cheyenne. No, actually, Mr. Bauer is a good friend of mine from university. He and I went to college together, and he was best man at me and the Mrs. wedding years ago. Sorry, Nick. Hope you don't mind if I told everybody that.
And he's got a really cool avatar from My Hero Academia.
He does. Yeah. Mr. Bauer there he knows his anime. He is a very sharp cookie when it comes to anything anime related. Thank you. So,
Why do you think Amber Heard did as Mira?
Honestly, I liked her as Mira. I thought she brought a good presence. I thought she brought a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm to the part and what have you. And I thought she was good on that. So
and she knows how to fight. So I mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, and
I just every time I think of her now, that's all I could think of. So I apologize. I'm probably just going to keep throwing out stupid comments like that because that's the way my brain works. So I apologize in advance.
Speaker, you're good, bud. You're good. You're Speaker. You're solid, my friend. But no, honestly, I liked Amber Heard as Mira. I don't know what direction they'll go with her, considering all the kerfuffle that's going on about her and everything. But for this movie, I thought she did a very good job. She did.
I thought she was okay. She was fine.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying she completely blew it out of the water, but for the part and for the part she had, yeah, I would agree. So, but and
we got a redhead. When was the last time you saw a redhead in a movie lately? There's something against redheads lately. It's like every comic book character that's a redhead is being swapped out for somebody with dark hair, green hair, blue. I mean, whatever. But like the red is the new no color. I don't know if anybody else has noticed that.
I got something against gingers, I guess, right?
Yeah, I know, and that's personal. Dang it. So,
well, the other character that really stuck out for me was William Dafoe's character of Volko, I think was his name.
Volko.
Thank you, Classic. Appreciate it. I really liked his part in this film. I think he did I thought his part was very, very good and everything, and I thought he portrayed this character very well. And I liked how he was kind of like the mentor for Arthur. Yeah. And all the flashback scenes, and then of course the scenes where he in present time were very, very. It was good world building. It was good character building for both Volko and for Aquaman. It built that relationship, and it showed you that he wasn't completely cut off from the Atlantean world and everything, even though his mother had to leave. Otherwise, they would have kept sending soldiers after her and everything, because she was, I think, the queen. Wasn't she a queen? She was the queen of Atlantis. Yeah. So she did what she had to do to protect her son and protect the man she loved. So I thought Nicole Kidman's character was top notch, and she only has, I think, maybe 2 or 3 scenes in the whole movie, but the fact that we discover she actually survives or has survived all these years, and she's actually a very capable combatant herself. I mean, even though she's older, it's obvious the age doesn't necessarily slow Atlanteans down and what have you. So I like that aspect as well.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Speaker, please.
The only thing that bothered me about her, and I know this is going to be a petty nitpick, but out of all the characters and all the actors, her hair bothered me. Every time she was out of the water, she looked like a drowned rat. Like, none of the other actors had that look, but whenever I saw her on screen, I'm just like, it was scraggly, and I'm just like, and I couldn't look at anything else. It was so distracting for me.
Like, I'm curly, wet hair.
Yeah, I'm like, what is going on with your head? I'm like, I know it's stupid, but that really bothered me. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, her acting was great, but I couldn't focus on it. He kind of brings
up a good point. Amber speaking. So Amber is a modern actor. Donna Moe is the first acting class these days.
Stoic.
Yes, stoic. That's a good one too.
Yeah, what's her name from Twilight films? Kristen Stewart. She learned from that same class. I have one facial expression, and this is it. So.
It's the Zoolander of acting.
Sorry, that was my Zoolander. That was Magnum. You know, the other
Blue
well,
Steel.
the thing, yeah, Blue Steel. Dang, I gotta do that movie sometime. Okay, that's completely wrong. I've got to review that movie sometime.
Absolutely, that's a great one.
Yes, but honestly, the thing that really sunk that really hooked me was the story and the fact that he wasn't accepted by the Atlantean culture. I mean, here is a guy who was direct blood descendant of to the throne, and he was pretty much poo-pooed on by everybody.
Yeah, I treat him like a second-class citizen kind of deal.
Yeah, they treated him like a second-class citizen just because his father was human rather than Atlantean. And honestly, you know, it's a part of the one part and everything. And I think I talked with Superior about this a couple of weeks ago.
No.
Was the scene when he finally gets to Atlan's trident, and you've got that giant creature, the Karathan. And the Karathan's actually talking to him. I don't know who did the voice for the Karathan, but dang, that voice just. And he refers to him as a half-breed and a mongrel and all these other things.
Do you mean the monster at the end?
Yeah, the Karathan.
I believe that was Julie Andrews that did the voice.
What?
And I say, why did I get the feeling you're trolling me?
No, I'm serious. Let me check.
Somehow I can't get hello to hello.
Yeah, but yeah, the that whole scene right there, and the fact that the Karathan actually backs off after he takes the trident and is like, you know, that thing's like, I could kill you any second I wanted to, and quite literally, it could.
According to Wikipedia, yeah, it was Julie Andrews.
He's right. I'm looking it up too.
Oh, Dame
Okay.
Julie Andrews.
Okay, I didn't see that one coming. Of course, I'll have to go double check it myself and everything to make sure y'all aren't lying to me.
Which was an odd coincidence because that was around the same time that Mary Poppins sequel was out too. So.
Yeah, both
weird.
came out in 2018. I remember that because we went to see. We actually went and saw the new Mary Poppins that year and everything. I actually really enjoyed it and everything, but that's another story for another time. And to the chat, what's his face, McWhatever, greetings. Thank you for tuning in. We're just talking about Aquaman. But guys, we've kind of done a little bit of overview. What's something about Aquaman that really resonated with you, if anything?
It gave me hope that the DCEU wasn't dead.
Yeah.
Especially after Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman was pretty good. I like that one as well.
Oh man, you know the missus almost said to me, "You got to do Wonder Woman as well." I was like, "Honey, we're covering 3 movies tonight. I don't want to go for 4 hours." So,
Come on, we could try for an EFAP kind of stream.
no, I leave that to Mahler. I leave those to Mahler. I'm not doing that to you all. I'm
Real
not that.
deep dives.
I am not that cruel. I am not that cruel. Okay, I'm not saying Mahler is cruel, but I'm not going to do that. No way. So, but yeah, as I was saying, guys, something that resonated with you about Aquaman, besides it giving you hope for the DCEU.
Well, I think just to watch my daughter's reactions, they have pulled in a whole generation of girls into possibly being interested in comics and comic book movies with this. Because not only did they sit there and drool over Jason Momoa the whole time, but when the kid who plays the younger version of Jason Momoa, I thought they were going to turn into puddles of goo and just fall off onto the floor because they were just like, oh my God, he's so bad. I'm just like, wait, I'm in the room. Wait till I leave before you guys start doing that. Because I've got, like a 20-year-old and a 17-year-old. So, but I mean, holy cow. They were just like, when that movie got over, they were like, whoa, this is the best thing ever. I'm like, it was all right. But yeah, I think we've sold the girls on a whole generation of Aquaman movies. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, just look at that. Look at that beautiful visage, honestly. And to one of my new subscribers, Spartan72, welcome. Glad you could tune in tonight. I hope you enjoyed the stream. Thank you for being here. And quite literally, I don't do that often, but he quite literally subscribed today, or he or she. I'm not going to assume your gender, but it's being at Spartan72. You can correct me later. And Rambling Canuck, welcome. Glad you could tune in as well. So, yeah, you know, he Jason Momoa very much brings a presence to this role, and it's true of every role that he's had. I mean, starting with Rowan from Stargate Atlantis to Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones. He's just okay. Spartan, cool. You know, he was so enthusiastic and so passionate, and the guy James Wan, the director, actually worked with him on this and everything to really get an idea of how he wanted to portray the character and the world that this character and all the characters were going to live in. And I'll say this for James Wan. He hit the ground running with this movie. I mean, I don't know how many superhero movies he's done in the past, but he really did a deep dive, and he was like, this is my ideas of what I want the world to look like. This is how I want the characters to exist in this space. I mean, if you just all the work that went into designing and crafting the worlds of Atlantis and the different kingdoms of the Atlantean races, it was mind-numbingly awesome and everything to see everything that they had done with this. So,
yeah,
guys,
the artistic design, of the film was great.
Yes.
For a long time, one of the popular images in the comics was Aquaman riding a giant seahorse.
Yeah.
And right at the beginning, you get that scene where they're riding those seahorses, and it actually looks cool. It looks good. It doesn't look silly.
And Mladen and everything, he brings up an interesting point.
Yeah, he did some horror movies, and he did a couple of the Fast and Furious movies before this too.
Yeah, and the funny thing was the director for Shazam and everything, he had a similar background as well. So,
one of the things I loved about Aquaman was Patrick Wilson.
Yes,
Patrick Wilson was awesome as Ocean Master.
He was, or King Orm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one of the things I love too is at the end when he was basically pleading with Jason Momoa, Aquaman, kill me, and he didn't do it. Just that what am I trying to say? The connectivity between two brothers, the love, even though he hated him. Patrick Wilson hated Aquaman. Patrick Wilson, Ocean Master, King Orm. He still spared his life and let him go.
Yeah.
About the movie.
Well, there was that other nice moment or anything Superior that you were talking about, where where Aquaman's like, when you're ready to talk, I'm here.
Right.
So
Exactly.
So it was a nice interplay because Orm had his beef with Arthur, but at the same time, you could tell through the scene where he had been captured that Orm didn't hate him. He's like, just go away and let me do my thing. But Arthur's like, I can't, because you're talking about waging war against the surface world and everything that's going to entail. And he's like, this is where my family is. This is where my dad lives. This is where a lot of people I know live. And just in general principle, you're wanting to wipe out or kill a big chunk of the surface world. And he's like, I can't stand by and let you do that. So yeah, the dynamic between Aquaman and Orm is actually a really good one, honestly. Yeah. And even the dynamic between Orm and Mira, I thought honestly that was a pretty good dynamic as well, because she was basically betrothed to the guy and was going to marry him. So,
yeah.
Well, that and you don't want to piss off Batman. Yeah, come on.
That too. Yeah, because obviously, and here's the thing. you can go into this movie without having watched Justice League, except for one reference when Mira is like, you have rightful claim to the throne. You are the son of the queen, and you did you did help defeat Steppenwolf. And aside from that, you can watch this movie without having ever watched any portion of Justice League, and you can follow along just fine. So,
Right.
It stands alone really well, yeah.
It does. It very much does. Well, and that's true and everything. I think also for Wonder Woman in a lot of ways. And honestly, I don't know if it's gotten pushed back to next year, if it's just getting pushed back to later this year, but I am so looking forward to Wonder Woman 84.
100%.
So looking forward to it. So
It's been pushed back to, I think, late in the summer, I think.
Okay.
It might wind up getting pushed later, though. I don't know.
It could. Well, I know a lot of theaters are going to start opening up, but they're going to be at like 50% capacity, which, yes, that sucks. But at the same time, at least the theaters are reopening.
I'm telling you, all you got to do is buy a defunct drive-in movie theater.
Yeah, I know.
And open that sucker up for a little bit. Because the drive-in, that's perfect for social distancing.
Drivers are making a killing right now.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but people got better sound systems in their cars than they do in their houses.
This is true. Well, depending on the house.
Well,
and
this is true.
Mladen brings up a good point. Patrick Wilson collaborated with James Wan, The Conjuring 1 and 2 in Insidious.
Yeah.
So that's, I remember Patrick Wilson being in The Conjuring, but I didn't remember him being in Insidious.
You tend to get a better product when you get good collaboration between the actor and the director.
Definitely.
I agree. Well, and James Wan, even though this was not his bread and butter, he did a good job. I honestly hope that they bring him back for the second one. And everything, if he's willing to do it, and I would say more than likely, he's probably in the Warner Brothers is gonna be like, "Hey, dude, you made us $1 billion. You want to come back and do it again?"
Aquaman 2, man.
Okay, I'm gonna pop
killing me in the chat.
I'm gonna pop this one up here. Atlantis, where your whole world is a bidet. What's it say? It's like, whatever. That's a good one, man. That is a good one. I think
where you don't need toilet paper.
There's a running discussion of this in the chat between
I
just
know,
another
and that's
nerd,
awesome.
Adega, and what's his face.
And,
whatever.
I think it was just another nerd who brought up the 3 seashells from Demolition Man. But I would be interested to see where they go with Aquaman and the DCEU from here.
Yeah.
I think honestly, if they want to do like I don't know how you could do it, but do like a reboot and start with Wonder Woman and go from there with Aquaman and so on, and do another Justice League movie down the road, I would be all for it. Truthfully, and I would even be happy if they brought Shazam in, because honestly, I thought Shazam was a great movie as well and everything. We'll get to that here in a little bit.
Love that movie.
But
doing a little foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So am I the only one that walked away from this movie kind of with a I wasn't disappointed, and based on what we'd been getting before, I mean, it was like heads and shoulders better than what they'd been doing with, Batman versus Superman and all that nonsense. But there was still just something that didn't quite. I can't even explain it. But I walked away from this feeling like they missed something, and I couldn't quite place it. But like I said, everybody else that watched it with me totally loved it. But I'm just like, there's something I just can't love this like I want to.
Well, I think the thing is with Batman versus Superman and Justice League in particular, the two big characters. I mean, how can you have an MCU without Iron Man? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with Superman and Batman. You cannot have any kind of DC universe without those two. I mean, It doesn't work. I hope they keep Cavill back or bring him back. I mean,
yes.
I do too, but
Yeah.
I'm afraid that bridge has probably been burned.
Yeah, I hate to say it, man, because Man of Steel was a good movie. I really enjoyed that.
And they
agree.
don't seem to even know what they're doing. But I think part of the reason that Abrams, they did that big deal with him to develop films for them, and I think he's going to be doing, some kind of a reboot of Superman, probably.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
no.
Flashpoint or something like that. It's going to be a soft reboot. Force Awakens. It's just going to be a couple shades off from Batman versus Superman. We'll be back to normal again.
That's all we need is another Star Trek and Star Wars.
Yeah, it's the way they
From the
handled
Master of
Superman
Destruction.
the way they handled Superman was just really disappointing. I mean, because Cavill, if you've ever seen him in interviews, the guy's really charming. He's really gregarious, and or seen
he's
him at
fantastic.
conventions and stuff.
Well, and he really liked
And they
playing
just
the
had
character.
him playing Superman as this sulking kind of
Broody.
loser, and it was just
Yeah.
it
There
just
was no
wasn't
Christopher
entertaining.
Reeves, man. Yeah.
And he was kind of dumb too.
Well, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I liked Ben Affleck as Batman, but the same situation with him. I mean, he dropped out, and I could see recasting a Batman, but how are you going to fit it in with the the current stuff?
I've heard that Wonder Woman is going to be they're going to do some kind of a reboot thing with Wonder Woman where they're going to change the past or something so that they'll be able to explain a new Batman and Superman, because I'm pretty sure they're not doing that Flash movie. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, no, especially after what Ezra Miller did.
No.
Choking girls lately. Yeah.
Choke slamming fans. I mean, that doesn't buy any points.
Yeah, and Adega brings up a good point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen.
I will say this: when I went and saw Man of Steel, I enjoyed it. It wasn't terrible. I enjoyed it for what it was. I thought there were a lot of good parts to it, and what have you. But yeah, they kind of screwed that portrayal of Superman up to an extent.
Well, I'm used to Richard Donner, John Williams with the music.
Yeah,
I mean,
I agree. Yeah, same here. Yeah,
They got the guy that they got to do Superman Returns.
Brandon
did a
Routh or
good
whatever.
job. He looked the part, but he had a crap movie. That movie was just. It had its good moments, but I was just like, you wasted that guy, because he really did. He's as close as we've had to the Superman and the Clark Kent look right since Christopher Reeves, in my opinion.
I would agree. Yeah,
but
he was good.
Why they waste? And I love Henry Cavill as in that role, but I'm like, why not try and bring the other guy back if he still looks the part, and give him a movie worth being in this time? I don't know if that's even possible.
I would agree with Speaker. I would agree with that. Well, I'm not the biggest expert. I do know about the DC universe and everything. So they've got a number of ways where they could do a reboot or something, and bring in new actors to play some of these roles and what have you. So,
they've already recast Batman, so
they're
already filming that.
Yeah,
and, I'm sure they'll probably recast Superman when this new one, whenever they do it again. Yeah. But I'm concerned with Abrams because Abrams did a script for a Superman movie back in like the early 2000s.
Really?
And it was
I think I heard about that.
A mess. It was really bad because in the script, basically, Jor-El isn't just a scientist. He's like the ruler of Krypton or something like that. So when he gets sent to Earth, first of all, Krypton doesn't explode. There's a revolt, or Jor-El gets overthrown, and another guy takes over, and then Kal-El gets sent to Earth so he won't be killed, by the guy that took over. He grows up on Earth, and then eventually, of course, I think Zod comes to Earth to find him to kill him. Yeah. I guess it's Zod. It's Zod that overthrows Jor-El. But then it turns out that Luthor is a Kryptonian too. And again, at the end of the movie, Krypton's still there. It's it hasn't exploded. I don't. It was a mess.
No.
So
They can recast Lex Luthor too. I'm cool with that. I didn't.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, I would agree with
He
that.
was the
one.
worst Lex
So-
Luthor ever.
It is.
I
It
like
is so.
Kevin
But-
Spacey, but
It is so frustrating to me how
Yeah,
how
that's probably
Warner
not gonna
Brothers
work.
struggles with doing some of these characters. I mean, Superman's not that hard to figure out.
No.
You know?
No.
I mean, when this whole DCEU started, who would have predicted that the breakout stars were going to be Wonder Woman and Aquaman?
And Shazam.
And they're the ones that were successful. And yet,
Classic Comics, I couldn't agree with you more, dude. I get into this debate all the time. Why do we have Batman and Superman as characters in DC, and they cannot get the stories right? But then we have a Wonder Woman and Aquaman, who they tell the stories phenomenal. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And Shazam as well. I love Shazam, his portrayal in the DCEU. It's so frustrating to me that they can't nail a Superman.
Yeah, if Aquaman can make $1 billion, and there's no reason why Superman can't make $1 billion.
Yeah, 100%.
In a movie with
totally.
Superman and Batman both in it, that should be making $1.5 billion, $2 billion, something like that.
It sells itself.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I mean, okay.
don't get me started.
Go.
No Snyder
No.
Cut talk here, man.
No, we're not getting into that whole mess. And just another nerd brings up a good point right here. He really was.
Yes, he was. He was.
He
awesome.
was. He was a great Lex Luthor because he brought a great dynamic and everything. He brought the friendship between the Luthors and the Kents and everything, and the fact that Lex and Clark were friends. They were good friends, and what have you. So, but throughout the years they have falling out. But and you kind of steer us back on course here a little bit. You kind of get that same dynamic I kind of mentioned earlier with Aquaman and Orm or Ocean Master. They had that same dynamic. These were two guys. They were they were brothers, half brothers, whatever way you want to term it. But Orm. His motives were understandable, but his execution was not the best idea.
Definitely.
Let's be honest here. And there's another villain I was going to get to, Black Manta. I honestly liked the actor who played Black Manta, and I didn't know much about the character. And this was a good introduction for him. And I liked the backstory and everything with the grandfather who served in the military and kind of got screwed by our end of things, by our government and everything after the fact. And he became a pirate. He became a scavenger. And you do what you have to survive and everything. It's not the most reputable profession by any stretch.
Right.
But I like the interaction at the beginning between the father and the son, everything between Black Manta and his dad. And I like the fact that he was kind of an agent of King Orm in the movie. And you had that dynamic there. And, this was I will say this for DC. They have had a fairly decent run, kind of like where Marvel is now with their villains, where they have built empathetic villains. You don't root for them, but you can kind of understand their motivation in a manner of speaking, even if you don't agree with it.
Yeah.
So,
Jeff Johns,
very true.
who wrote, the stories that the Aquaman stories this is drawn from. One of his real talents is being able to take villains who are fairly two-dimensional and giving them more depth. He did that with Ocean Master. He did it with Black Manta.
yes.
Sinestro's another good, and Black Adam. They're working on a Black Adam movie.
Yeah, I've heard
And
about
I
that.
tell you, that's probably almost entirely because of Jeff Johns' work on the character.
Mhm.
Because he was pretty much just a straightforward villain, and then John started writing Justice Society. This is back like around early 2000s, late 90s.
Mhm.
And he made Black Manta and more kind of like Namor over at Marvel. He's more kind of an anti-hero than an outright villain.
Yes.
And you understand, again, you did, like you kind of said, you don't necessarily like them, but you kind of understand why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, totally. And we'll get into Joker here in a little while, but this is something I think I have talked with Superior with about this whole idea of them doing a rogues gallery of maybe Batman or somebody and doing villain origin stories in a manner of speaking, because the DC, one of the things they have over Marvel in a manner of speaking is their villains. They've got some very empathetic, they've got some relatable villains in their gallery that they could over time build movies around. And the one that I've been rooting for a long time is Mr. Freeze, because we have, except for the 90s animated movies, we have not gotten a decent Mr. Freeze adaptation on screen. I'm sorry.
What?
Arnold
like
wasn't
Arnold?
decent.
What?
No, I don't.
For shame.
you.
There's a freeze coming. I hated the Schumacher movies.
You know, I wish they'd go get that gal that did all the cartoons for Warner Brothers during the 90s and put her in charge and make her the Kevin Feige of the DCEU.
Well, I don't understand why Warner Brothers doesn't get Bruce Timm and put him on making movies. That's just continues to baffle me why they don't do that.
Yeah,
They've got a great resource
they've got
right
such
there.
good talent that has done so much for them in the past. Like, why do they keep jumping to these other people just because they have flashy names? Go with the people who, got you where you're at. Because the DC cartoons are heads above anything Marvel's ever done with their cartoons. I mean, I grew up watching the Batman animated series, the Superman, the Justice League. I mean, I am a huge fan of those. And I'm like, okay, if you can do it in cartoons, why can't you do it in live action? That just doesn't make any sense.
RR brings up a good one. That would be a good villain movie to do a thing. And Aladdin, he brings up another one as well. I mean, he's like Mr. Freeze and Two-Face. Yeah.
I did like Aaron Eckhart or whatever as Two-Face though in The Dark Knight. That was good.
No. But yeah, I think honestly that was one of the strengths of this movie, is the fact that you had villains that everybody could relate to. In a manner of speaking, you could understand their motivations, even if you didn't agree with them. And I'll say this: I love the design aesthetic for the different. I know I kind of brought this up, but I really like the fact that they really delve deep into how each of the different kingdoms of Atlantis, or the undersea kingdoms, would have evolved since the fall of the main kingdom itself. And it's so intricate and it's so deep and rich and everything. And I know for some people it can be a glut of CGI and effects on screen, but honestly, I can see all the pieces and what have you, and I can really say I love this world. I can't wait to see more of it, honestly. I mean, the actors obviously are the hook for the movie. If you can't relate to the characters, you've got no movie. But right. The fact that you're seeing them interact in each of these worlds, and you see how each of these worlds and functions in a manner of speaking, it really immerses you, and once it quite literally drags you under the sea and says, hey, come take a trip with me down here and see how awesome this place can be. So, but guys, any further thoughts on Aquaman? If not, we'll move on to our next to our next entry.
I'm curious, what would you guys rate this film? Like, if you had to rate it 1 out of 10, what would you give Aquaman?
I'd give it about an 8.5, but like I say, he's one of my favorite characters, so I'm probably a little biased about it.
A solid 8, I would say. Storytelling's phenomenal.
I'd say about 7.5.
I think I'm with most everybody else. I would say probably this is a tricky one. I would have to say probably 8.5 as well. Honestly, I think because there are some parts I didn't care for, but at the same time, they're nitpicky and what have you. They're not a deal breaker for me. Honestly, I think it's a solid movie. I give it an 8.5. I agree with the panel. So anyway, and to the chat, I've got an 8, I've got a 7, and so on. So guys, put your own score in this chat and everything. What you all thought of Aquaman? We may just do this tonight and everything as we're going through each movie. So, all right, Shazam.
Oh,
This was a very different tone superhero movie from what we've gotten in the past. We've had some humor interspersed in superhero movies before, but honestly, this one really has at the heart of it is very much a much more humorous take on the whole superhero genre. Except for maybe one movie from the 90s that I can recall off the top of my head, and that's Mystery Men. But I didn't get to see this in theaters. I actually got it on Blu-ray for Christmas. And I finally got a chance to sit down and watch it, and I was like, wow.
I was blown away.
Different. I was too. I mean, I had never heard the actor Zachary Levi before. I heard of the guy that
Chuck or whatever.
Huh?
He was in that show Chuck.
Was that him?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. But yeah, this was honestly a very different take on a superhero movie, and I thought it was a very refreshing one, to be honest. And it had a message that very much related to me, and I'll get into that in a little while. But guys, your thoughts on Shazam? What you liked? What was good? So on. I'll open the floor to y'all.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was one of their better films. I was really disappointed that it didn't do better than it did. It kind of flopped, really.
I thought it was a great movie. I honestly did. I loved it, all of it. The only thing I was worried about in the beginning before I watched it was how was this grown man going to take the personality of what a 14-year-old boy, 15-year-old boy, and then he did it perfect, dude. It was so good. I loved it. It was hilarious. It was fun all the way, dude. Even at the end with the Superman cameo, even though it wasn't Henry Cavill, but still, or was Henry Cavill? I don't know, but
no, it wasn't him.
Oh, okay.
Good body double though.
Yeah.
No, I liked this movie. In fact, I paid the $3,000 it takes to take my family to a movie in the theaters these days. But I mean, and all my kids liked it. My youngest got a little freaked out by when the demons actually come out, and stuff. And then I'm just like, all right, just cover your eyes. And they're like, but I can still hear it. And I'm like, well, then cover your ears and shut your eyes. I mean, once I got past that, it was okay. But I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I was laughing out loud. It's one of those times where I kind of laugh at weird things anyway. So, I mean, half the time I was like, bah! And I'm the only one in the whole theater doing that. But I mean, it was just my whole family had a lot of fun in this. And I mean, just and his ability to go deadpan on stuff was just like, when he's like, oh, cool, you're dead. And he turned, when they're in the supermarket and the kids are there, he's in the middle of the robbery and the guy just shot him. I love that. I love someone's ability to deadpan something like that. And it makes me laugh every time. I love that kind of sarcastic humor.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. My favorite scene in the whole damn movie is when he's doing lightning from his hands.
Yes. Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Okay, I gotta go on camera for this one.
Hands, lightning from my hands.
To the Rocky music.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at it the way I do, like Ant-Man. It's more of like a lighthearted comedy almost.
Yeah.
As opposed to a, more like a serious Captain America toned movie, I once again was just floored by the comedy in this movie. I mean, It's like whereas jokes in The Last Jedi just failed to land, this one hit him every time, and it was really, really good.
Well, and
Yeah,
again,
it's a fun movie. It's a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
And here's the thing. Again, you had a director who wasn't known for superhero movies. He'd done horror and he had done a little bit of comedy. But the guy was like, this is a little bit out of my depth, but honestly, I think he did. I can't remember the name of the director, but I think he did a outstanding job directing this film. And when you're going into a unknown genre, in a manner of speaking, something that's new for you, you're going to be a little nervous. But he did. He had a good vision. He had a good idea. He had a good grasp of the universe, of the world, and everything of Shazam.
David Sandberg.
Thank you, Classic. Appreciate that. Yeah, David Sandberg. You said.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, this guy, he really brought it for this movie, and he was like, I'm not used to doing this, but he's like, Warner Brothers come to me and said, hey, we want you to do this movie called Shazam, and he's like, okay, sure, I'll go do that, absolutely. So, but
I loved Mark Strong as the villain. He's such a good bad guy.
Dr. Savannah.
I mean, every movie, like when he played the villain in the Sherlock Holmes movie against Robert Downey Jr., I mean, he's just so good at it. It's sad because you never actually get to see him be a good guy in anything, but he does the bad guy so well. And I loved how at the beginning they switch. Like, I was actually confused halfway through the film because I thought the first kid was going to be the Shazam kid, and then you figure out that he's not, I'm like, that caught me off guard, and I liked that. I liked the fact that, that I wasn't being led around by the nose. It was just like, they switched something up on me, and, it's just like what people love about The Sixth Sense. You like it when you get surprised by a film, and I liked that,
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like the opening of this movie very much. So I like the fact that you get the villain rather than getting the hero first. And and again, this is a villain who's not just evil for evil's sake. He's had a hard childhood. He has had a hard life. And the old wizard, Shazam is like, I see only a darkness in your heart. I know you're not getting the power. And what have you, and then he sends out that seeker spell to find the champion, and eventually it gets to Billy Batson. And I will say this for the kid that played Billy, he did a top-notch job. He really did. And this is where I'll go into how I related to Billy, because I think I've shared this with some of you. And not all of you, but I myself am an adoptee. Now, I was adopted at birth and everything. I didn't grow up in foster homes or whatever, but I know a lot of friends and family who have adopted themselves and who are foster parents. And this character very much resonated with me. I very much got where he was coming from when he was searching for his mother. And you have that scene and everything. I think it's toward the beginning of I think it's after the whole Dr. Savannah's sequence and what have you, and you see him going up to that one house, and it turns out it's a lady of color with the same last name as him. And he's standing outside the house practicing what he's going to say to his mother and everything, and then later on towards the end of the movie, he finds his foster siblings are able to track down his biological mother, and he goes to this very rundown, very dingy type of apartment building and everything. And my heart just sank because I could very much relate to how he felt, because there was a point when me and my biological mother, we had, in a manner of speaking, of falling out as well. So I love the emotional tie to Billy Batson that they build with you in this movie. Even if you're not a person who is adopted or grew up in a foster home or anything like that, you can relate to him on that level. So,
Definitely.
Yeah, you really get a sense of that abandonment.
Yes.
Well, and I like the actors that play these foster or the parents,
I did.
the you know the last pair of foster parents he has.
Yes.
They're really cool people, and the kind of people that you hope are out there for foster. You know what I mean? It's just like because they both grew up that way. They knew what it was like, and I really like that aspect of the film overall. Just the very family-esque aspects of how they treated that. It was. I think that was important to see in this film.
Yeah, and I love the fact that. And Nerd brings this up, and I can see where that would be a problem, but I think they'll be able to figure out ways around it for the other movies if there are the movies. And honestly, I think this movie was profitable enough both in theaters and with video sales. I honestly think they'll do another.
They're developing a sequel. I don't know.
Are they really good?
Yeah.
Because honestly, you got Dwayne Johnson coming in. I mean,
you've got Dwayne Johnson coming in as Black Adam, who is Captain Shazam's primary villain. So, I'll be excited to see how they work that whole thing out, because honestly, this is a world. The Shazam universe is a world that has a lot of stories to tell, and I think honestly they can. Link him into the broader DCEU and everything at some point if they do another Justice League movie or something along those lines.
Well, they already kind of have with the Superman cameo.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think the plan is, they're working on, or supposedly, I think the Black Adam movie is going to come out. I don't know. It's 21, 22. I don't remember, but they're going to do Black Adam, which will be an origin for Black Adam, and then Shazam 2. I think they'll have Black Adam in that.
Yeah, and I think that should be an interesting dynamic, particularly if they get Zachary Levi back, because you think about it, Rock, he's got a humorous side to himself as well, so it'll be interesting to see if they bring any of his natural comedic. I'll say it and everything. I think he's not a stand-up comedian, but I think The Rock or Dwayne Johnson has a very natural comedic ability to himself and the way he acts. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. And I think the two of these guys.
He definitely does. And that's what made him such a popular wrestler, is the comedian side that he has. Dude.
Oh, heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
100%, man.
There's
going
an
from
interview.
Rocky Maivia to who he is now. I mean, good Lord.
Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
There's an interview with him, and I can't think of the guy who's in Jumanji with him, the little black actor.
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart.
Kevin Hart.
They did an interview on an English comedy show and stuff, and those two together are hilarious. I mean, they had everybody in stitches, because he's sitting there going, yeah, like, what are you, 3'2", and Kevin Hart's just like, what? And they just sitting there riffing on each other, and it was hilarious. I mean, The Rock was almost funnier than Kevin Hart was, and I'm just like, that's impressive.
It was crazy. He's just as fast to come back at Kevin Hart as Kevin Hart is. And Kevin Hart does that for a living, just ripping on people.
Yeah, totally.
He's just as fast.
Just training on John Cena,
And to the chat, Jens Pender, good evening, sir. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it, my friend. Good to see you. Yeah, because honestly, Zachary Levi, he brought a lot of energy, a lot of exuberance, a lot of. I think those are two good descriptors to this part. He did a bang up job with this role, and I love the interaction between him and the other foster brother, Freddie. I think it was the one.
Freddie,
Okay, I loved their interaction right there, because honestly, over time, Freddie kind of became his conscience in a manner of speaking, or became that moral compass for him, saying, "Hey, you've got all this power at your disposal. Yeah, we were playing around at first, but he's like, you could be doing so much more with these abilities." And eventually, Billy's like, you know what? He's right. And I can't remember who said, but yeah, I very much liked the foster parents and everything. And I will say this, and yes, this might be a little cringy. This is diversity done properly.
Always said the D word.
Beat you over the head with it.
This is organic. This is organic diversity done properly. This is how it should be done. This is how it can be done in movies organically, because you've got a husband that's of the Polynesian persuasion, and you've got a wife that's of the Hispanic or Latino persuasion, and then you've got the kids who come from different backgrounds themselves, and they all work. They all have a good dynamic together. They all seem like a foster family, and they all are relatable, and it's not cringy, it's not forced, and it's not off-putting.
Oh, it's like Star Trek Next Generation.
Is one of the best parts of the show. The little black girl. She has some really great moments in this film. I mean, you're just like, I just want to pick her up and take her home.
Well, and I don't know if any of you got to watch the special features on Shazam or not, but they had the actors who played the kids and their adult counterparts, and they very much tried to make them not just physically resemble the younger actors, but have kind of that same personality. Because the older actress who played the little sister and everything, very much and everything kind of embodied what would be like for a elementary school kid to have superpowers.
Exactly.
So
tones with that movie Big, kind of with Tom Hanks, kind of.
Well, and they actually do a little bit of a callback to Big, if you remember it, when he's
they
there
had
in
the
toy
Zoltar
store
machine or something
with the piano.
Yes,
thing
when he's there in the toy store and he's on the piano and Savannah is chasing after him, and he's doing the piano thing just like Tom Hanks did in Big, and I can't remember who said it or anything. This is like Big with superpowers. So, but yeah, this is like crossing Big with a superhero, and it worked because, I was watching some of the supplemental the special features, and Zachary Levi, he did this whole audition via Skype in a manner of speaking, and Sandberg and the other producers were like, "That's our guy. That's him. We want you to play Shazam. Sign on the dotted line, and the part is yours." And something funny and everything, kind of getting into the production design of this, the lightning bolt on his chest. They actually had some malfunctions with that thing. It kept shorting out during shooting, and they had to bring electricians in to figure out exactly what was going wrong with the darn thing. And thankfully, they were able to figure it out. But I love the costume design for Shazam and even for the villain, Dr. Savanas. But this was a guy, everything. Savanas, a relatable villain, a villain that you could empathize with. And he just chose to go down the wrong road. He became obsessed with getting back to the Rock of, I think it's a Rock of Eternity, is it what it's called?
Rock of Eternity, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, but guys, anything you want to, any thoughts on anything I've brought up?
Well, you had mentioned the performance of what's his name, Alex Asher or Angel Asher, I think is his name, that played Billy. And I thought he was okay, but I think personally what I suspect, because the thing is that when Zachary Levi is Shazam, honestly, he doesn't really seem like an older version of Billy, or Billy in an adult body. He seems a lot more like Freddy, the other kid, in an adult body. And I suspect that originally they were going to have the other one. What's that kid's name? Jack Dylan Grazer, the one that played Freddy. I think he was originally probably going to be Billy, is my guess. But they couldn't find anyone good to do Freddy, and so they wound up making him that, because between Billy and Freddy, Freddy's actually in the movie more. Billy isn't there that much. He's Shazam much of the time, which makes it, I think, a better movie, but it does sort of make for a disconnect between the younger Billy and the older Billy, in my opinion. And one of the things about the character, because his power comes, his name is an anagram, Shazam.
Yeah.
And he's supposed to have
Let's see,
right.
Solomon,
and among other
Hercules.
things, he's supposed to have the wisdom of Solomon.
Yeah.
But how do you do that when he's got the mind of a child? How do you make that work? And
Yeah.
it's, it honestly, it doesn't work that well most of the time.
Yeah.
But it does make for a more fun character, I think.
Yes, I would agree. And I think maybe over time, as he matures, maybe that wisdom does kick in to a degree, and you do see some flashes of him maturing. You see him using that wisdom of Solomon towards the particularly in the third act of the film, and what have you. And it starts to emerge a little bit more. But the other thing I forget, I love the design of the sins. The 7 deadly sins. And can you think of any more gruesome design for something that vile? I mean, jeez. These things will look like clearly rip your face off, and in some instances, they do. So, I mean, you've got Sylvanus, obviously, as the main protagonist, but then you've got the 7 deadly sins as the other protagonist, and you're like, oh boy, this is going to be intense. So, any thoughts on that, guys?
Yeah, I thought they were pretty well done.
Definitely.
I think, actually in some ways this movie kind of reminded me of Gremlins because it's this kind of comedic, but also with kind of a horror element to it.
I could see
I thought made it a lot of fun.
Say it one more time, Brian.
Yeah, I was just agreeing. Yeah,
Oh,
definitely 100% on that one.
See, that's, I know this probably make me unpopular here, but that was one of the parts of this film I actually struggled with, was the design of the 7 deadly sins.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but they just didn't seem, I don't know, they seemed almost too cartoony to me and stuff. I mean, they were scary. I mean, they scared the crap out of my little girl. So, but I mean, there was just, there was something that, I wish they'd have made them all look like have different powers, like one could have been smoke, one could have been fire, one could, just to make them, give them all a very individualistic look, and they all look different.
They could have given them like different colors,
right,
different shades of color, because they're all kind of the same hue, which
just,
makes them kind of blur together.
But yeah, I just, you look at them and I kept thinking they could have done so many things there, and they just made them look like fat and weird lumpy hobgoblins. I'm just like, really? You've got all the aspects of horror and sins and all that kind of stuff, and I was a little underwhelmed by them, I guess, and I'm sure they were going for something that wasn't gonna traumatize all the children on the in the theater.
And Speaker, I can totally see what you're saying, and I can agree with you on that. I mean, if I was going to design the 7 deadly sins, the imagery wasn't bad, but I think I would have diversified them a little bit more, maybe in their color scheme or what have you. And I totally get what you're saying wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I mean, they were good. Don't get me wrong.
They were for me. They were very menacing. I'm like, yeah, this is kind of what I would imagine the personifications of the 7 deadly sins would look like, and the fact that you had to have the wizards there to hold them at bay from getting loose, and then you have Sylvanus coming back and everything to the Rock of Eternity later on down the road, and releasing them. And he takes that orb and everything and shoves it into his eye. His eye's all messed up, and he's got his staff and everything. I'll say this: the fight scenes between Shazam and Sylvanus were actually really good. And for just a little bit of history on the character Sylvanus, originally he was basically an evil scientist in a lot of ways,
right?
And I think keeping kind of that dynamic for his character, but ultimately having him take that orb and absorbing the power of the sins and him becoming a vessel for the 7 deadly sins was actually a good move. I think because the one scene that there were several with Sylvanus I really liked, but that scene where he finally comes back after he's gotten his power boost and everything. And he comes back to his family's company, and he's there in the conference room with his brother and his father and everything, who's now crippled, and all the board members. And just fun fact, the guy who played his father was actually the guy who played Lionel Luthor in Smallville, for those of you who may not have known that. And he was also on, I think he was, no, I'm thinking of somebody else. Never mind. And he's like, well, what do you think of me now, Dad? So, but yeah, honestly, Sylvanus and the guy who portrayed him, he did an excellent job in portraying someone that wasn't comic book one note evil. He had a difficult childhood, and he was doing whatever he could to try and make himself better and try and impress his father and his older brother or younger brother. I think no, he was the youngest. Yeah,
he was the younger.
Yeah.
And that kind of folded into the whole theme in the film of, the relations between children and parents and what makes family, and kind of exploring that.
Yes.
But you're right. He was originally basically just kind of a stereotypical mad scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this kind of relates back during the New 52, Jeff Johns redid Shazam's origin, and he redid Savannah along as part of that and made him into this different character. And yeah, I think it was a good move because it distinguishes him more from Luthor, because Luthor and Savannah had a lot of similarities. They're basically both evil geniuses who are bald,
Basically,
and
yeah.
In fact, I think for a long time I was hoping Mark Strong would play Luthor, and when they declared
Jesse Eisenberg,
right, playing Luthor, I was just kind of like, what?
Oh no.
Yeah,
the world gave a collective sigh.
I didn't even bother. I honestly didn't even bother to go see Batman versus Superman, because honestly, I've talked about this before, and I'll just bring it briefly. I saw the animated version of that story with the anime and everything that kind of melded Dark Knight Returns and Batman versus Superman into one story, and they did it remarkably well. And they were like, Jesse Eisenberg as Luthor, and then they're going to bring in Doomsday as well for that thing. I'm like,
how are you going to kill off Superman in the first movie? Makes no sense.
Yeah, that was just dumb.
Yeah.
And their design for Doomsday was terrible.
Oh,
absolutely. I was like,
really? It wasn't
That's
great.
The best you can do?
Yeah.
Seriously? But anyway.
It was so silly because it's, okay, they're killing him off. They kill off Superman, but you're, 2 movies into this new universe you're making. Mm-hmm. And we all know you're going to be doing Justice League, so we all know he's going to be coming back. I mean, it's just kind of pointless.
It was a death with no weight.
By the way, we did that stream on Excalibur the other night. Right, Ambassador?
Say one more time.
We did that stream on Excalibur the other night.
Yeah.
So if you watch Batman versus Superman, I believe when the Waynes, when Bruce Wayne and his parents come out of the theater, if you look on the movie posters behind them, one of them is Excalibur.
Really?
And what happened at the end of Excalibur?
Return of the King. Well, Arthur gets taken off to Avalon. Yeah.
Well, I mean, before that, in the final battle, let me put it that way. What happens?
Mordred kills Arthur.
And they impale each other.
Yeah.
And kill one another. What happens at the end of the battle in Batman versus Superman?
I wouldn't know. I didn't see it.
Oh, yeah. Well, Superman and Doomsday impale each other. And kill one
really?
another. Yeah.
Huh, okay. All right. Well, I didn't know that, so thank you for telling me that.
See, I thought, and I can't say his name correctly. It's Djimon Hounsou or
Djimon Hounsou.
Yeah, I thought his character as the Wizard. I love that guy. I don't know why, but I loved him in Guardians of the Galaxy when he plays the Enforcer guy. I mean, he's just got one of them voices that I'm just like, you instantly know it's him. And I mean, he is like touch it, when he yells at Billy, but he's like, okay, all right. I thought he was a good choice to play.
He was good in Captain Marvel.
He was, yes, he was as one of the Kree Warriors. Yeah, he was good in that. So, any other thoughts on Shazam, guys?
No.
Anything else you want to talk about?
I thought it was a great movie.
Yeah.
What's everybody's score on this one?
Yeah, I was gonna say I'd give it a solid 8. Solid 8.
I'm gonna go a 9. Actually, a 9.5.
Yeah, I was gonna go solid 9, 8.5, solid 9.
I'll give it an 8.
Speaker?
9. I'll give it a 9. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Well, the main reason I give it a 9.5 is because this, like I mentioned earlier, this movie very much resonates with me on a personal level, and I love the fact that they actually use part of that real life dilemma for Billy and everything as part of his way for the audience to connect with him, to be truthful and everything. So that for me was the big thing. That was a big draw for me. So, but we won't belabor the point.
So, I guess one thing I was going to mention earlier, but I really liked how I just lost his name. The kid helps him figure out what his powers are. That whole sequence of going issue by issue by issue by issue. All right, can you fly? Whoop, boom, and he falls down. And it just, I really like that aspect of where he had to learn everything that he could do because there was nobody there to show him. It's just right from the very beginning. So I was thinking about that earlier, and then we got off on something else. But yeah, I liked that aspect where he had to figure it all out.
That was a good part of the movie because, as we've mentioned previously, this is a different dynamic for a comic book movie because you've got a kid who's trying to learn how to use his superpowers.
Yeah,
and I love the scene where they're in the convenience store.
Yeah.
And
I would like to purchase this beer, please.
Not just that.
And the counter lady's like, he's back there.
Okay. Well, and the other thing is when the robbers shoot him and the bullets just bounce off him, he's like, "Well, you're dead," and he knocks him out the front window.
That's what I mean. He does that deadpan thing. She's like, that was cool. You're dead. And he just turns and completely about faces, Love that.
And that's something that honestly that the director brought up was the fact that there was, it was Zachary Levi who brought this up. There was a lot of improvisation within the film and everything. And it very much added to the characters and what have you, and their interactions with one another, because there was improvisation in movies can sometimes be a little tricky. But I think what Sandberg and the rest of the team did was they took the best bits and they put them in or they left them out and what have you. So that was honestly, the humor and the deadpan humor in particular was honestly spot on, I think, for this movie, because I think a kid his age would very much be kind of a deadpan comedian or what have you. So,
yeah. Seems like the chat has about the fairly same opinion of this as we do.
Yeah. And to the chat, Kathia Starr, good evening, ma'am. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. All right, gentlemen. Well, time for the big one. Joker. And this is not your dad's Joker. No. This was, I think, the hit of the year last year. And I know it's taken me a while to get around to it, but all good things come to those who wait. And when I got to finally see this, I was like, holy crap, no wonder it made $1 billion. I mean, this was... when I got done, I was honestly kind of drained because it was such a heavy film. It was and this was not your atypical. This was not atypical, period. I mean, because you had what's the name of the director? What's the name of the
Todd
director?
Phillips.
Yeah, Todd Phillips. He brought it. Phoenix, as Katie had just said, brought it. These guys. Okay, you know what, guys? Your thoughts.
Well, out of the three, it's the only one I saw in the theaters.
I didn't get a chance to do that, but go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Brian, please.
Nah, I loved it. It was really topical today, especially if you're somebody who follows kind of the culture war type stuff, from a political aspect. So it was kind of really interesting to see like a juxtaposed to what you see nowadays as far as protests in the real world. With like Antifa, stuff like that, where it's basically just eat the rich and stuff. And I think they were trying to do the Bruce Wayne, or sorry, darn it, I always forget his last name.
One Bad Day.
Yeah. And so, I mean, like I said, it was really topical. I loved De Niro in it. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
and
he was.
But yeah, I mean, even at the end, shocked me. I was floored. Just, you get what you effing deserve, man. And it was it really, really sank in.
Guys, it was definitely the right movie at the right time, I think.
Exactly, yes. It really fit the time.
And personally, when they first announced this movie, I was not really excited at all. I was just kind of like, oh, God.
I was burnt after Suicide Squad.
Well, I mean, I thought I actually was fine with Jared Leto's Joker. I didn't mind it. I didn't think it was great, but I didn't think it was terrible. But I think whoever followed Heath Ledger was just gonna eat
that was
shit,
just a big
basically.
Shoot, yeah,
he was just kind of part of it. But I was not enthused by the idea because I was like, well, what do I want a Joker when there's no Batman? And I also felt pretty strongly like the Joker works better if you don't know his origin and if you don't know who he really was, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who he was before he became the Joker.
Yeah.
So
he just was.
When I saw the movie, I was really impressed. I thought they did a really great job and I think this is, this Joker is not going to be like connected to the rest of the DCU, I think. And I think that's probably for the best if that's the case.
Yeah, I agree with that, though. Jack was the best Joker. I'm sorry. I grew up on that movie.
I gotta disagree. It was Mark Hamill in the cartoon version. No, it's a toss-up. They're all great. I mean, what does that say that this one character in comic books has had some of the greatest portrayals by some of the greatest, actors and character actors and voice actors? I mean, the Joker is just such a rich villain. The clown prince of crime. He was played by Cesar Romero. He's just great. I mean, and to have another iteration, when I saw this coming, I was like classic. I'm like, ew, no. But I kind of thought this is either going to be epically good or catastrophically bad. And I mean, and then, we all saw what we got.
Well,
I was against this film from the beginning because of Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. I was very against it right away. And one of my buddies from the comic book community was like, listen, Heath Ledger was told numerous times that he was going to be the worst Joker ever.
Yeah, when they announced Heath Ledger as Joker, I was not impressed at all. I thought, what?
Exactly.
That guy?
The guy from A Knight's Tale? Huh?
Yeah,
well, exactly.
Well, here's the thing. And here's some real food for thought, and here's something I will say. When they announced Heath Ledger as Joker, I was like, this could be interesting. And when me and one of my best friends from high school, we went and saw it back in 2008, I remember going to see it in theaters. It's even to this day. I mean, 22 years on. or 12 years on, actually. So that's right, that 12 years on. We walked out and we were like, holy crap. This was amazing. That was an amazing portrayal as the Joker. And here's some food for thought. Think about this, guys. In the last 12 years, 2 superhero roles have won Best Actor. One posthumously, one still alive. And both for different iterations of the same blasted character. From actors who knew what the hell they were doing and who had good crews around them to give them good material and a good environment in which to flourish and work. Even though it took Heath Ledger's life, he went out on a high note. I mean, I fully sympathize for his family. I feel bad for everyone that he left behind. But he left behind a role that will stand for the test of time. And Joaquin Phoenix's, in my opinion, is right there. It's Ledger, and then Phoenix, and then I do not say this. I might get some backlash on this. Nicholson third.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And my thing is, I thought Joaquin Phoenix, dude. I thought Johnny Cash.
Yes, I was thinking Walk the Line too. I was just like, man,
I was like, there's no way, dude. And then I watched. Well, my buddy went to go watch it in the theaters, and he was like, "It was awesome. I'm gonna go watch it again tomorrow." I'm like, "No way, dude. You're gonna watch it 2 days in a row?" He went again. He was like, I loved it just as much the second day. I was like, "No way." Mm-hmm. And then when it came out on PlayStation Network, I bought it, and I watched it, dude. And I watched the trailer. Hold on, let me take a couple steps back. I watched the trailer, and then just sitting there watching him laugh, that crazy laugh, dude. I was like, "Wow, we might have something here. He might be able to pull this off." And then I watched the movie, and I was like, "Holy crap! He is a great Joker." And I think Classic Comics said it. I don't know if I'd want to see him in a DCU. As far as with like a Justice League and stuff like that, but
but a Batman though. I mean, hell.
Oh yeah, dude, it was so good. Loved it.
Yeah, I mean, if they somehow tied this Joker into the new Robert Pattinson Batman, I wouldn't complain.
No, not at all.
I would not complain. But just as a standalone movie itself, just something that does take place in the DCEU, maybe in a different dimension or parallel dimension or whatever, doesn't matter. Joaquin Phoenix, he absolutely brought it. And the crazy thing is, you don't know if what he's telling you is 100% the truth, because you've got that one part, because I don't think we're spoiling anything, where you realize that the one woman that lives down the hall from him hasn't been hanging around him. It's all in his head.
Right.
Yeah.
It's all completely in his head. He is that off of the rails.
Yeah, I think the director actually came out afterwards and said the whole thing is pretty much just all in his head and a delusion, I think.
Yeah.
It's like those great episodes from Star Trek where you, at the end of it, you're not sure that you're really outside the box. You know what I mean? The one with Riker, the one with Cisco. That's what I think of. I'm just like, am I in the box or am I out of the box? You know, am I in the Matrix or am I out? And so,
you know, if we take a couple steps back when we were discussing Aquaman and discussing their the DC villains and how they resonate with the audience more than the heroes in some instances, right? Mm-hmm. There's no other. Well, okay, Marvel and the indies. I'm just talking about comics here. I don't think there's any other villain that would resonate with an audience the way DC's villains do. For example, Joker. You know, I wouldn't want to go see a Thanos movie.
No.
You know, I mean, like, really?
No, you don't really need to know the backstory on Thanos, even though they've done several comic book lines on his backstory, which honestly are interesting. I've heard good things about him, but there is just something about all of these villains from DC that are so compelling, are so interesting, and we have just honestly, this movie's kind of spoiled us in a lot of ways, because if you think about it, we may never maybe, I don't know, maybe another 10 years down the road or something from another actor or whatever. But it's going to take a long time before this Joker even, well, I mean, as I just mentioned, Hell's Bells, 12 years later, we're still talking about Heath Ledger's rendition of the Joker.
Yeah. Oh, we're still talking about Jack Nicholson.
Yeah, him too. I mean,
30 years ago. I mean,
Where does he get these?
Never rub another man's rhubarb.
Yeah, never
Think
danced
about
with the
the
devil
great
in the pale
one-liners
moonlight.
in that.
I mean, it's almost like a game of one-upsmanship.
Yeah, definitely.
Nicholson set the bar, and then like Ledger's okay. Here, hold my beer. And he's like, then he set the bar, and then Phoenix is like, okay, here, guys, hold my beers.
Well, I'd say it was more Cesar Romero on the old TV show that set the bar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, that show's been on the air for so long, and in DC in particular, I think strikes a chord more with general pop culture as opposed to, say, Marvel. Not so much recently, but throughout the 60s, 70s, 80s. I mean, it was DC. I mean, there was no other movies or TV shows at that point in time, and if there were, they were garbage. Like the Fantastic Four that never became a movie or something like that. The other thing I wanted to touch on, though, was the soundtrack. The music choice in that movie was fan-frickin-tastic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good.
Which one are we talking about?
Oh, Joker.
Jokers.
The soundtrack to Joker.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Glitter doing the Hey song and, White Room from Cream. I mean, oh, dude. Goosebumps. Love that song.
Yeah, the soundtrack for this movie was so good. So darn good. And, the interesting thing was when I was, again, I did research for these movies, folks. Like I said, I sat down for 3 hours this Thursday and went through all this stuff. What they did with the design of Gotham, they used New York, but they de-New Yorkified New York.
Yes.
And they did such a good job, and they had all the trash piled up everywhere. And they did such a wonderful job of portraying this version of Gotham that was just very gritty and very dank and very dark and nasty, honestly.
Yeah, but it's New York of the late 70s, early 80s, around there.
Yeah, I think it was Phillips that brought that up and everything. Him and his one of the producers grew up in New York during that era before they went off to college or whatever. And this is the New York that they remember and what have you. And it was just it sets the tone and everything for this slow descent into madness, or this further descent into madness for Arthur Fleck, this newest iteration of the Joker. Because up until now, we've never had a first or last name for the Joker character. And unless I'm mistaken, didn't they take this name?
Yeah, Jack
yes.
Napier.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I didn't deliberately forget it. It slipped my mind. Yeah, Jack Napier. Yeah, but you've got a very different backstory on this version of the Joker. He's not a mobster. He's not a gangster. He's not well put together. He's not very suave, a very sophisticated, a very intellectual guy. He's a comedian, and he's not even a good one, and he's living with his
hospital
mother.
Clown, basically. Yeah.
Say one more time, Brian.
He's a hospital clown. I mean, it's kind of the bottom of the barrel,
Yeah. And, it's just this personification of the Joker just it stunned me, it staggered me, it amazed me how well Phoenix portrayed this role. And I think for me, one of the best scenes, honestly, and there are several in this movie. I think one of the best scenes is where he's he's at Arkham, and he's got his mother's file, and he starts flipping through it, and you just see him start to slowly come unhinged, and then eventually he goes back to the hospital and suffocates his mother because everything she's ever told him is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's like
that
the
was
whole
just,
lie of the movie was revealed at that point in time, you know?
yeah, pretty much.
Because you found out that his neighbor wasn't really his girlfriend and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was just his whole world crashed. And
Yeah, and he snapped. And the other scene that was a very disturbing scene is when that one guy who gave him that revolver comes to his apartment with the other guy and everything.
Oh yeah.
It was a dwarf and everything, or a little person, whichever term you want to use. And he just takes, I think it's a pair of scissors or something, and just bludgeons the guy to death. And the blood's just pouring out of him, and you don't know what he did with the body, if anything.
yeah, I imagine he just left it there.
Yeah.
Ugh.
But, this, of course, I recently saw a clip from, I think it was The Dark Knight Returns, with the scene with the Joker on the talk show. And then it clicked with me. That's where they got the inspiration for the scene where Joker's on the talk show that Robert De Niro's character hosts. Jackie,
The Maury Show or whatever.
Jackie Murray or something like that.
Franklin Murray. That was it.
Franklin Murray,
I think that's it. And that's where they got the inspiration, at least in part, for that particular scene. And
Murray Franklin. That's
Murray
it.
Franklin.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Murray Franklin. Thank you, Classic. Yeah. But that scene was so darn unnerving. And here's the crazy thing. For those of you that may not know this, they did numerous takes of him coming out from behind the curtain over and over and over, so many different takes and what have you. And they have a compilation of them on the Blu-ray. And all of them are just a little more disturbing than the last.
Oh wow.
And what have you. And you're just like, holy cow, no wonder this guy got an Oscar for this. So, but guys, anything you want to bounce off of, anything I've said?
I just wish they'd put out movies like this more often. Original thinking, think outside the box. Don't worry about what just do the right thing. Do a good story, do good characters. Don't worry about putting politics in there. And if you do, be clever enough that, bludgeon people with them and make them walk out going, I hate this because it was Republican. I hate this because it was Democrat. I hate it. It's just, we need more movies like this that that check all the boxes and stay away from the stuff that we just don't need in entertainment.
Well, and that's the thing. The media surrounding it before it came out, they were saying, oh, it's an incel movie. It's, the white nationalist, la, 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 la. And it's like, I watched the movie. I'm like, I go in thinking I'm going to see this, like, horrific
Am I going to get
film,
shot while I'm in here?
yeah. I'm just like, this movie really wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
well, they were trying to call out the army and stuff at some theaters, and I'm just like, okay, you guys have slipped your moorings.
Yeah, the media was wanting someone to shoot up a movie theater so bad. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think Phillips did this intentionally, but I think you see this in the film. Just I think I don't want to say by happenstance, but for lack of a better word. You see a reflection of, as Brian and Superior and Speaker have all said, this is kind of a reflection of our current culture in some ways. And, it's just, it is somewhat disturbing because a person like Arthur Fleck could quite literally exist in our world currently.
Definitely.
And that's unfortunate, honestly, because this guy is, I'm going to say it, he is a victim of circumstance. He is a victim of circumstances beyond his control. He's obviously in an unhealthy home, and he is very much mentally disturbed, and he should not. I think in some respects he should not be in normal society, but unfortunately he is. But the other thing about this film is the whole dynamic, even though it's very brief, between Robert De Niro's character and the Joker. Because the Joker, this guy and everything that Robert De Niro's portraying, he's like Johnny Carson. He's like Jay Leno. He was one of those great late night talk show hosts that everybody liked, everybody respected. He had a good reputation. He had certain rules for his show that you did not cross, and he was absolute. And the whole design of the whole set for the talk show was very reminiscent of old school Johnny Carson. You had the sidekick with like the very much the more resemblance to Ed McMahon and what have you, and you had the one short little lady that kind of reminds you of either Dr. Ruth or I think Dr. Ruth would be accurate.
Yeah, it was probably supposed to be her because in that Dark Knight sequence, in the comic book, the graphic novel Dark Knight Returns, there's a sequence on a TV show where there's a a Dr. Ruth sort of character in there. Mm-hmm. She gets Joker gassed.
But this film has proven one thing without a doubt. You don't always, and I won't go specific here, so as not to offend anyone who might catch us on the replay. You don't always need a foreign market for a movie to be successful.
It's very true.
So this movie made $1 billion in America all on its own. Why? Because it was a well-crafted movie. This is something I would think very much harkens back to the 1980s when Hollywood was willing to take risks.
Yes.
This very much gave me a feel. And honestly, all three of these movies, even though they are in the superhero genre, with Aquaman and with Shazam, they all felt like something that we could have gotten in the 1980s because they did have kind of that feel to them. This was Hollywood taking chances. This was Warner Brothers specifically taking chances. They were bringing in directors and creatives that weren't necessarily synonymous with the superhero genre. And these guys, James Wan, David Sandberg, and Todd Phillips, these are not superhero movie guys. They're on several occasions in the special features, they described Todd Phillips as our tour. And I would agree with that. And the other two were more synonymous with horror and comedy and what have you, more than they were anything else. And they all did outstanding jobs, everything, bringing these worlds to life. They very much were. They brought fresh air and a fresh breath of air into these worlds and to these characters. Because let's face it, who would have thought that Aquaman, the most maligned superhero, quite frankly, either between DC or Marvel, would become a profitable movie franchise? And if we're going to be getting another one, obviously we are. They have proven that they can take a, let's just be candid here, up until this point, a D-level hero and lift him up, quite frankly, to an A. And they did a great job with this. And honestly, aside from them revisiting Joker, I hope they don't. I really, really hope they don't. But I hope that maybe someone passes along my message to Hollywood and says, or to Warner Brothers and says, hey, let's do supervillain movies with our supervillains. We've got good villains we can work with, and we can create interesting movies around. Let's do that.
Yeah, like a Lex Luthor movie, or
Yeah, well, we kind of got Lex Luthor through Smallville, so.
Well, I love the new take on. I just lost his name. Venom. Wasn't the best superhero movie ever, but I liked how they made him an anti-villain, and the guy my heck, what's the guy's name that plays him? Yeah, Tom Hardy. Holy cow, I love him. He was so funny. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
that movie had its issues, but overall, I was like,
good movie.
why are we not getting these kind of like villain, you know, the inside of the villains so that we can not really identify with them, but it's just like it makes them not so cartoony. Suddenly they're real villains. You get why they're a villain, you understand it, and there's a whole new aspect for them to explore.
Yeah.
Can I touch on something real quick?
Sure.
Just talking about these three movies, right?
Mm-hmm. Go for it.
Seems like a standard consensus that we all agree that they're good movies, all three of them.
Yeah.
Between 8 and 9s, I mean, those are good movies. Including, I'm going to include Wonder Woman, even though we didn't talk about it. I thought that was a good movie as well.
I thought Wonder Woman was great, honestly.
Me too.
Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, this is what bothers me so much about the DCU, is you've already set the standard as far as a good movie. $1 billion? Are you kidding me? Obviously, you know what to do. It's here. But it seems like they always try to rush to beat Marvel to the cinemas, that they end up making a bad movie. Batman versus Superman, Justice League. Suicide
Squad.
So that's the one I was trying to think of. Suicide Squad. Oh, are you kidding me?
Prey.
It hurts my brain to think about the DC.
Birds of Prey.
Well, you kind of get the vibe. You kind of get the vibe that you did from the sequel trilogy movies. They didn't have a plan. It was like they were just making movies for the sake of making movies.
Yeah.
Well, they had a plan. It wasn't a very good plan.
kind of fell apart right there in the beginning.
Well, I mean,
the rails
the
right off the bat.
DC is supposed to be kind of dark, but they went too dark. It's like you went so dark we can't even see you now. I'm like, you're standing out in the middle of space,
right?
Like, you need to dial it back just a little, because they still have to be heroes.
And there's one
I
great
think that's
thing
what
they could do. It's in the dark right now. Lobo. They could do a great Lobo movie if they had the right director, the right producer, the right writer. Dude, Lobo was supposed to be a one-off character, but everyone loves him. I mean, this dude dies, goes to hell, takes hell over, gets kicked out of hell, comes back to Earth, and kicks Superman's butt left and right. That's a great villain or anti-hero, whatever you want to classify him as. But I'm sorry, I'm ranting now.
No,
It's
Cody,
good.
you're good. Cody, you're not wrong. I mean, DC has an opportunity. Yes, I know people have said, well, J.J. Abrams is going to come in and wreck the joint. You know what? If you remove Star Trek and Star Wars from his resume, he has done some good stuff.
Yeah.
He really has.
Yes.
He has done good work in cinema. So you know what? To kind of harken back to my faith, I am going to give him a second chance. I am not going to completely write him off and say, nope, you're done. I'm going to give. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the thing about JJ. Okay, I loved the 2009 Star Trek movie.
I did too.
It took a stale snow globe that was Star Trek and shook it up. It needed to be done, especially after Nemesis and all that kind of stuff. But
I would agree.
I draw the line, though, is that what he did with Into Darkness. I followed a lot of the news and stories going up to it, and Jonathan Harrison was supposed to be a whole different character. And then when they did the con reveal, boom, I was done.
Yeah, and honestly, I can understand that. I really can. I can get that. But and Brian, I'll agree with you. I mean, I liked his Star Trek films. I didn't see Star Trek Beyond. I heard it was okay.
Justin Lin and
it's not.
Simon Pegg did a really good job on that movie. I know Simon Pegg did a lot of the writing in it, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, because he's a good writer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Simon Pegg is a great writer. He's got a very sharp comedic mind and just a good writer's mind, period. But I will give DC this much, and I'll give Warner Brothers this as well. If Abrams can come in and maybe right the ship or come in with some fresh ideas and not wreck everything, then I think the DCEU has a good chance to catch a second wind, and it's gotten its second wind. So let's see what he can do. And here's something else that I don't think we've really touched upon in terms of the DCEU. The animated movies, by and large, have been very well done, and they have honestly been darker in some instances than some of the movies, the live action movies we've got. I mean, if you look at Justice League War, where they take on the new version of Apocalypse, if you look at Superman Apocalypse, when Superman and Batman and Supergirl are introduced, that's a top-notch movie. Justice League Dark, I heard, was very good. You've got a whole catalog of animated films that have been released by DC that have been very good. Whereas the Marvel ones have been like, they're 50-50 at best. So I will give JJ a shot. Now, if he messes me over,
fair enough. I mean, yeah.
I think JJ is actually a pretty talented filmmaker as far as being a director, but his movies is just so often the writing is bad. It's just... I'm crossing my fingers and hoping for the best, but I'm expecting that these
and the camera
projects
shakes
he does aren't going to be good.
And Kathia, good to see you. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. You have a good night. I'll talk to you later. So.
Well, and I think with Star Wars, he was getting micromanaged by Kathleen Kennedy and Disney. I think there was more going on there. I mean, I still think he had control in that, but I'm going to give him a shot because I always give everybody a shot. You get one chance, and if you screw it up, then it's like, nah.
Well, like they say, it's always been his MO. He's a good starter. I mean, The Force Awakens was good. I like The Force Awakens. He just can't finish. Look at Lost.
Look at Alien.
Yeah.
Oh, touche, all of you. Oh my God.
Although I didn't get the chance to finish Alias, but from what I heard, it kind of ran off the rails, unfortunately. So, but well, guys, any final thoughts on any of these movies? Because I think we've covered these pretty good, and I think it's been a good discussion, been a very entertaining discussion.
Yeah,
honestly,
it's been fun.
So,
I would say 9.5 as far as a ranking on Joker. It was fantastic.
Yeah,
I mean, I
very rarely do this. 10 for 10. I very rarely ever do that, but 10 for 10.
I'd give it probably an 8.5, maybe a 9.
Okay, Superior.
9.5 for sure.
9.5.
And I did want to mention, because it's funny we're talking about the Joker, because I actually did a video for my channel just last week that kind of discussed the Joker. And are any of you familiar with a movie called Network that came out in the 70s?
Yes, I actually saw that. I just haven't had a chance to watch it. Yeah, go ahead.
So I kind of, because I watched it recently and was kind of struck by how many similarities there are in terms of kind of the themes and also sort of the elements of plot between Network and Joker. There's some very similar things.
Yeah. So.
Well, isn't Taxi Cab another one, or
Taxi Driver?
Yeah.
Taxi Driver. Thank you.
Yeah,
that
Taxi
one's
Driver.
been brought up a lot in reference to this movie.
Well,
Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, which are two movies that Scorsese did that I think were pretty much direct inspiration for this, for Joker.
Well, not to mention you had Robert De Niro in this, so that was one of his earliest roles was.
And Scorsese was actually connected as an executive producer early on, but he left it.
So, but yeah, this was I'll be interested to see what the DCEU how it continues to evolve and everything in the years to come. So, and I'm hoping, honestly, that this can become some real competition, maybe some constructive competition for Marvel, to make Marvel just
make Marvel great again.
Well, it's like WCW, WWF,
Sorry.
man. You got to have competition.
Yes, very true. I agree. Yeah, and I think healthy competition is a good thing, particularly for the viewing audience like ourselves. So,
Definitely.
all right,
Yeah, I'm not complaining.
I certainly am not. I think it'll be interesting to see because we've got, I think, coming up in the next month or so, we'll be starting to get the Marvel TV shows on Disney Plus coming out before too long. I would think. I think they're supposed to be coming out in the next couple months at least.
Yeah,
So
WandaVision looks good. I really want to see that.
it does. It really does. I'm considering doing some reviews or some streams on the MCU TV shows. So
That'd be awesome.
well, folks, I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. I want to thank my panel, Brian, Master of None, Speaking for the Dead, Classic Comics, and Superior Hero Reviews. Cody, thank you for being here, my friend. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you having here. And to the chat, everybody that's in here, Kathia Star, Aladdin, my wonderful moderator, Shea Stormdragon, doing a great job as always. Guys, anything you want to plug, anything for your channels before we sign off for the night?
Well, yeah, I'll just reiterate the network Joker video did, and I'm actually working on a video kind of in the pipeline about Man of Steel and about there's a novel called Gladiator that was kind of, a lot of people think was probably kind of one of the inspirations for the Superman character, and kind of talking about the parallels between Gladiator and the Man of Steel film and how the connections between them.
Cool. Okay. Guys, anything?
Yeah, just check out my channel, Brian Hill, Master of None. Next on the 4th, May the 4th, I'm going to be doing a live stream for about an hour talking about the new canon books that Disney's put out since they took over. I have them all on Audible. They're actually really good.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so that's basically what I'm going to be talking about in the near future.
Outstanding. Superior Speaker?
I'm just doing some videos right now. I'm going through the Timothy Zahn series for the Star Wars, the old Legends EU. I just did one for Dark Force Rising. And
the Thrawn books.
I'm on the second one. Just started or just did one on that. I'm doing a 2-parter on that one, and I just did one on Heir to the Empire about a week and a half ago.
I remember watching the one for Heir to the Empire. You've read Dark Force Rising. Okay.
So and then I've also just finished the Last Command, which is the last one in that trilogy. Ooh. So I'm doing reviews on those just because I'm late to the EU. Because I was always afraid they wouldn't live up to the originals. But since the sequel trilogy came out, I'm just like, nothing can be as bad as that. So I'm going back to get my fix from the EU. And I am like, why did I not do this 20 years ago when these were coming out? Why am I so late? But you know what? I'm getting there. So, and it's been positive. It's been great. It's making me feel like a kid again. And I'm doing them on Audible, and the reader is fantastic.
Oh, Daniel
he does the voices of Han, Leia, all of them, and he does an excellent job. So that's kind of what I'm working on, and then I hope to be starting to do more Expanse content, breaking down the characters, because I love the Expanse. So
yeah, it's a great show.
Yeah. Superior, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, so in the next couple of days, I'm going to be dropping a review on the movie Extraction, the new Netflix original with Chris Hemsworth and directed by the Russo brothers. And we're going to be doing some stand-up comedy reactions, stuff like that, some funny stuff. And, of course, Chunky to Hunky, Comics and Fitness. That's my little segment that I'm doing, trying to get healthier, something funny. But, yeah, before we get off, Ambassador, I want to say thank you for having me on. It was a great time. Brian, Masters of None, nice to meet you. Speaker for the Dead, nice to meet you. And Classic Comics, nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise, man.
Likewise.
Yeah, nice to meet you, bud.
Yeah, hopefully we get together more often. This is awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I'll keep you in the loop. Remind me, I will send you a link to the Discord if you have an account. and we can keep in touch that way. I mean, I don't mind doing Instagram, but it's kind of it's a little bit easier. So, but yeah, folks, just a couple of updates on the channel. I do have a Discord, so if you're interested in joining that, just DM me on Twitter at my Twitter handle. The finger. There we go. Close enough. Right here. And and I'll send you a link for that. I also just recently started a Reddit account. So if you are on Reddit, I'm working on there are several communities on there as well. So if you want to reach me that way, you can. In terms of channel on the update on the channel, this coming Monday we'll be resuming afternoons with the Ambassador. Me and the Dag will be covering Babylon 5 Season 1. And then also, I'm working with, you've seen him several times on my streams, Nobody Geek Jesse. He has recently started a channel there focused on Star Trek. I will I will put a link, and I'll put links for these guys in the description of this stream down below. I'll be doing a stream with Jesse over on his channel, 10 Forward Lounge, I believe it's called. Or
Nice.
no, right now it's called Let's Talk Star Trek. So look him up there. I'll be doing a stream with him and a couple other fellows. I think Monday night, I believe it is. And then of course Wednesday we'll have Wednesday edition of Ambassadorial Wing. And I'll be reviewing a couple other Disney classics like I've been doing alternate weeks. This week we'll be doing Bedknobs and Broomsticks. And I haven't figured out the other movie yet, but I'll figure out something. And then this Friday afternoon, me and Loki and Speaker for the Dead, we're going to be doing a review of Highlander with Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery. So that'll be at 4.
There can be only one.
Yeah, so that'll be at 4 o'clock Central Time.
What is haggis?
Sheep stomach stuffed with meat and barley.
How revolting.
Okay, let's say that for Friday, guys. But I have one other announcement, and this is something that I'll be mentioning on my streams and streams I guest on. I am planning on doing a 90s music review stream and karaoke night, but I'm going to do it when I hit 300 subscribers. So if you're liking my content, share this out. If you want to see that 90s review stream, start sharing my stuff. Get me to 300 subscribers, and for my 300 subscribe celebration, we will do that 90s music night. So
I cannot wait.
So anyways, guys, thank you all for tuning in. For those of you that will catch us on the replay, I hope you enjoyed the discussion. I know it's been a lot of fun on my side as well. So
Definitely.
And until next time, this is the Ambassadors signing off.
Night, everybody.
Night, guys.
Night.